All right, so today we are diving headfirst into Atomic Habits by James Clear.
Good one.
It's so good. It's basically the playbook, right? For anyone who wants to seriously up their game in, well, life. And we know you're out there, those go-getters, trying to make things happen.
Busy lives, big goals, all of that.
Exactly. So we're doing the heavy lifting, pulling out the absolute most useful stuff from Atomic Habits, especially for those of you who feel like you're short on time, which, let's be honest, is probably everyone.
Pretty much.
Like, think of this as your cheat sheet for actually making those upgrades to your life, the ones you keep meaning to get to.
One tiny tweak at a time, that's the Clear philosophy.
I love that, tiny tweaks. So James Clear himself, right? He doesn't start off as some self-help guru like preaching from on high.
No, not at all. His story is kind of what makes the book so powerful, I think.
Totally. Tell us about that. He had a rough start.
Yeah, so we're talking a near-death experience, a horrific accident when he was in high school playing sports, shattered bones, coma, the whole 9 yards.
You don't just bounce back from something like that overnight.
No, exactly. And I think that's something anyone can relate to, whether it's a physical injury or just feeling stuck in life. It's that feeling of wanting change, but feeling overwhelmed by the thought of it.
100%. It makes you realize even the most successful people we admire, like, they didn't get there by snapping their fingers. Couldn't just will himself to be fixed.
Right. He had to start small. Really small, actually.
Which is where the Atomic Habits thing comes in, yeah.
Exactly. So we're talking like keeping his dorm room tidy, going to bed early, things anyone can do.
Things we often dismiss as being too small to even matter.
And that's the whole point. It's not about making some radical transformation overnight. It's the opposite. Tiny, almost ridiculously small changes, those 1% improvement.
Okay, but see, that's where my brain always goes, yeah, right, like one less cookie is going to make me thin.
I hear you. It's easy to dismiss the small stuff, but here's the thing. Clear uses this analogy of an ice cube. Imagine it's sitting there at, say, 25 degrees.
Okay, got it.
Slowly, the temperature rises, degree by degree, 26, 27, 28. Nothing seems to happen to the ice cube.
Right, it's just slowly getting warmer.
Exactly. Then you hit 32 degrees. Bam! The ice melts.
It's that tipping point.
It was those single degrees, each one seemingly insignificant on its own, that made the difference.
So it's the same with our goals. The little things DO matter.
Yes. That one extra workout, those few minutes of practice each day, they seem small, but they accumulate. They have this compound effect over time, just like compound interest, but for your habits.
So if you're thinking, my goal is to write a book, but I can barely get myself to write a paragraph.
Yeah.
Think of it like slowly raising the temperature on that ice cube.
Love that.
Each word you write, it's bringing you closer to that melting point, that moment where the change you want becomes inevitable.
Precisely. And that's the beauty of this approach. It's not about becoming a completely different person overnight. It's about designing a system for slow, sustainable change that fits into your already busy life.
So then how do we actually design that system, that sustainable change thing?
Well, that's where Clear gives us this really cool framework. He calls them the 4 laws of behavior change.
It's almost like hacking your own brain, which I'm here for.
Oh, absolutely. And the best part is they're not some vague, abstract ideas. They're super practical, like tangible steps you can actually use.
Okay, so hit me with it. What are these laws?
All right, so he lays them out as make it obvious, make it attractive, make it easy, and make it satisfying.
I like where this is going already. So let's say, make it obvious. What's a real-world example of that?
Okay, so Clear has this great example about playing guitar. He says, if you want to play more, don't keep your guitar tucked away in a case, right?
Out of sight, out of mind.
Exactly. Put that thing right in the middle of the room where you literally can't miss it.
So simple, but I can see how that would make a difference.
It's all about removing those mental barriers. Our brains are wired for efficiency, We crave the path of least resistance. So by making your desired habit obvious, like front and center.
You're basically making it the easiest choice.
Exactly. You're removing any friction to starting.
Love it. And he takes it a step further, too, with this idea of habit stacking, which I always found kind of fascinating.
Oh, yeah. Habit stacking is huge. It's like a superpower for building new habits.
So break that down for us. How does it work?
Okay, so let's say you want to start meditating, right?
Been meaning to.
Classic. But you always struggle to find the time.
Always an excuse.
Exactly. So Clear would say, okay, what's something you already do consistently every single day without fail? Brushing your teeth, maybe?
Yeah.
Perfect. Now, stack your meditation habit on top of that. So after I brush my teeth, I will meditate for 2 minutes.
So you're basically building a chain of good habits, one link to the next.
You got it. By attaching a new habit to one you already do, it becomes automatic. Less likely to forget, less likely to skip it, because it's now part of this existing routine.
That's clever. Okay, so that's make it obvious. What about making a habit, I don't know, enticing? Because let's face it, some habits, especially starting out, they're just not that fun.
Right, they feel more like chores, but that's where make it attractive comes in.
Okay, so how do we actually make a habit something we want to do?
So Clear talks about associating a new habit with something you already enjoy. He calls it temptation bundling, which I love.
Temptation bundling.
Yeah.
That has a nice ring to it.
Right. So, for instance, let's say you love listening to podcasts like this one, hopefully, but you struggle to find time for exercise.
I see where this is going.
You only allow yourself to listen to your favorite podcast while you're exercising.
Okay, that is genius. I'm already thinking of all the things I could pair with my workouts now. But I got to ask, I mean, this all sounds great in theory, but I'm sure some people listening are like, yeah, easier said than done, you know? Like, I've tried new habits before. I get excited. I start strong. Then I just fizzle out.
Totally get it. It's that classic easier said than done thing. But that's where Clear's third law comes in. Make it easy.
All right, so how do we do that? Make it easy.
His argument is that most of the time, it's not motivation that trips us up. It's that we make things too complicated for ourselves.
I can see that.
We overthink it, we set the bar way too high, and then we get discouraged when we can't keep up.
So true. So what's the solution? How do we simplify things?
He has this thing called the 2-minute rule, which I'll admit, when I first heard it, I was skeptical.
Oh, I bet 2 minutes.
Yeah.
Like, what good is 2 minutes going to do?
Exactly. But here's the thing. It's kind of brilliant in its simplicity. Instead of trying to do the whole thing like a 30-minute workout, you just focus on the first 2 minutes.
So literally, what?
Yeah.
Just putting on your workout clothes.
Yes. Or like if your goal is to read more, you just read 1 page.
Okay, so it's about tricking your brain into taking that first step.
Exactly. Because a lot of times once you've taken those first 2 minutes, you're already in motion and you're more likely to keep going.
It's like that saying, the hardest part is starting.
Exactly. Plus, it eliminates all those excuses we tell ourselves. Like, you can't really say you don't have time for a 30-minute workout if all you're committing to is putting on your workout clothes, right?
Well, like, no excuses. And I remember you mentioning a story about a guy who wanted to lose weight, right? He started by going to the gym for like 5 minutes at a time.
Oh, yeah. That story always stuck with me. He would literally just drive to the gym, work out for 5 minutes, then leave.
That's wild. 5 minutes. Did it even do anything?
Well, that's the thing, it did, because it wasn't about the 5 minutes itself. It was about building the habit. And eventually those 5 minutes turned into 10, then 20, and eventually he was working out for an hour or more.
So it's about building that identity as someone who goes to the gym, even if it's just for a few minutes.
Precisely. It's not I'm trying to be healthier. It's I'm someone who goes to the gym. Big difference.
That's a game changer for sure. Okay, so we've covered make it easy. What about make it satisfying?
Right. This one is all about rewarding yourself for your efforts, no matter how small those efforts are. Even if it's just putting on your workout clothes. Celebrate that.
So it's like positive reinforcement for our brains.
Exactly. And one strategy Clear talks about that I absolutely love is called the paper clip strategy.
Okay, that one sounds intriguing. What is that?
Okay, so let's say your goal is to, I don't know, write a certain number of words each day. You could have 2 jars on your desk, one empty, one full of paper clips. Every time you write a page or a certain number of words, you move a paper clip from the full jar to the empty one.
Wait, that's it? Moving paper clips.
That's it. It sounds ridiculously simple, but seeing those paper clips accumulate can be surprisingly motivating.
I can see that. It's like a visual representation of your progress.
Exactly. And our brains love that. Each time you move a paperclip, your brain gets this little hit of dopamine, which makes you want to keep repeating the behavior.
It's like you're gamifying your goals. I love it.
Exactly. It makes the whole process more enjoyable and less like a chore.
This has been so insightful. We've covered so much ground today, how even the smallest changes can make a difference, how to make habits stick, the importance of environment. We even learned some fun tricks like temptation bundling and the paperclip strategy.
And I think the biggest takeaway here is that it's not about willpower or motivation. It's about understanding how habits work and designing your environment to support those habits.
Speaking of environment, Clear talks about how our surroundings can really sabotage our best intentions. right?
Yeah.
Like if you're trying to eat healthier, but your kitchen counter is always covered in tempting snacks.
Right, you're setting yourself up for a losing battle. He uses the example of a cookie jar. If it's full of freshly baked cookies on your counter, you're way more likely to give in than if you had to go to the store every time you craved a cookie.
It's about making the good habits easy and the bad habits hard. Out of sight, out of mind, as they say.
Exactly. It's about making conscious choices about what you surround yourself with, both physically and mentally.
So much of this boils down to being mindful, right? Mindful of our habits, our triggers, and our surroundings. And as we've learned today, even tiny tweaks, when applied consistently, can make a massive difference. It's not about being perfect. It's about getting 1% better each day.
Absolutely. It's a journey, not a race. And anyone can do it.
That's such an empowering message. So as you go about your day, think about one tiny habit you can focus on, one small change you can make in your environment to support your goals. Remember, even the smallest actions, when repeated consistently, can lead to extraordinary results. That's it for our deep dive into Atomic Habits. We hope you found it as eye-opening and useful as we did.